have to stop this.
You've had vision before and turned out to be nothing.
I'm not going to the police. They'll never believe me.
Nope, we are not talking a remake of Midnight Caller that starred Gary Cole, but give it a few years, I'm sure that property will hit the remake machine at some point. But we are talking Night Caller. This one is directed and written by Chad Ferrin and stars Susan Priver as Clementine. Now, Clementine works in a call centre, a kind of late night call centre where people phone up to get their fortunes read. However, she is actually psychic, and with her colleague Jade, played by genre favourite by Ling, who in the movie is also kind of genuinely psychic, they get calls from a serial killer wanting to kind of commit crimes. Now, the serial killer, played by another genre favourite, Steve Railsback, who is no stranger to playing serial killers. I wonder if that's why he was chosen. And we get a number of other kind of like recognisable character actors, including Kelli, Maroney, show up in the movie as well. So we have this kind of situation where Clementine is in this kind of call centre, getting these calls from a serial killer. She's kind of getting these visions about kind of what he's about to do and try to stop him, and inadvertently kind of saves his life on one occasion. This kind of deepens their connection, and now she feels obliged to stop him. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss what I think works first of all with Night Caller. This movie has a huge reverence for the horror movies and slasher movies of the 70s and early 80s. And I think fans of that genre will really appreciate the attention to detail I think this movie does of recreating the style and look of those films. This is a contemporary movie. It's not taking place in the kind of the 70s, but it still does feel like it has huge inspiration from that kind of style of movie. And as I mentioned, I think it's paced very much like those kind of style of movies. The camera, the kind of the lighting here, even some of the, I think some of the gore effects are kind of reminiscent of those kind of styles of movies. And that it was a popular subgenre then, and it's certainly a popular subgenre now. And I think that kind of will obviously, itch that scratch for many of you. The movie is actually co-produced by Girls and Corpses, which is a US kind of gore magazine. So you'd expect this movie to have plenty of the red stuff, and it doesn't disappoint on that front either. And although the gore isn't kind of like splattered within every minute of the movie, there are scenes here where we see our serial killer scalp his victims and even have necrophilic sex with one of them at some point. So it does kind of go for the kind of the jugular with its kind of explicitness and gritty sleaziness, which I think is going to be a big hit with kind of the fans of that kind of style of subgenre. And any of those effects, I think, again, which is clearly a low budget movie, but done to a kind of a good kind of standard here. I think Priver, who plays our main character of Clementine, does a good job of making a believable and kind of likable character, serving as our point of view sort of within this movie, and is kind of very kind of down to earth, and the character is kind of, I think, quite kind of well written. And another thing I think was also a good example of kind of some good writing here is how the movie has these kind of things that are kind of within the film about, for example, the killer's look. And at first it might just seem like an arbitrary choice, but as the movie goes on, we learn there's kind of reasons for things that are kind of paid off kind of later on in the movie. So if things initially kind of look a little bit kind of like odd choices, don't worry, the movie I think does a good job of kind of coming back to a lot of these points and kind of giving you reasons why certain things are the way that they are. I have to say I quite like the climax of the movie. I do think the movie in itself is somewhat predictable, but the climax was a little bit different. I think that they actually did a quite fun little job in regarding that. Again, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I actually kind of quite liked the climax of the movie. And even though this movie is a kind of a slower pace in some respects, again, it's kind of aping that kind of style of the 70s style movies, and thus it's not really a kind of you know, an action-packed every kind of minute movie, I do think it's nonetheless an engaging film throughout, and it has a real reverence for the kind of the horror movies of the past, having a number of kind of different nods and kind of references to that kind of to those kind of movies. And we're talking some more obscure stuff, not just the kind of your typical kind of things you see on screen here. Okay, maybe what doesn't work. I don't know if this is a sort of a movie for everyone. It certainly feels rough around the edges in regards to its kind of screen presence. As I say, obviously, again, it's taking cues from movies from the 70s, but I do feel some of this kind of, that mixed in with its kind of clearly low budget gives it this kind of little bit of a rough and ready feel that I don't think may be best suited for all. I think the pacing may put kind of some people off. And there are some instances, although I think there, for example, Priver does a good job here, there are some cases of some very kind of hectic kind of overacting from some of the actors here. And I got a feeling some of these choices, shall we call them, were just given by the actors and saying, you know, do what you think works, and it just is a little bit kind of over the kind of the top at times. This movie loves a bad wig, and there's a reason for maybe one of these, but there's also more than one character that has a bad wig, which I didn't think looked particularly kind of good. Minor detail here, but it was a little bit visually kind of distracting here. I don't know why there's a certain character who insists on having a wig when they didn't actually have to, and it just kind of looks a little distracting here and there. The movie is a little dark at times, and I don't mean dark as in tone of the movie, I mean literally dark. And again, I think this is a choice to try and give it this kind of noir feel, if you like, and this kind of this gritty, grimy look. But at times, it does seem a little bit kind of dark. And the movie itself, in plot-wise, is relatively kind of predictable. It does feel like it is somewhat derivative of kind of other movies that kind of, obviously it's clearly influenced by, and outside of the kind of maybe the one small thing I liked about its climax that I wasn't expecting, outside of that I do think it's fairly predictable in regards to kind of what actually happens. So not really kind of anything you're not going to expect kind of story-wise. Yeah, I gotta say though, generally speaking, I think this is a movie made for a specific audience. I do think would appreciate this, but it's a little rough and ready. It's a little kind of low budget. It does feel like it's kind of like reasonably kind of quickly kind of put together, that I think may put some people off. So I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. I do think it hits the spot for those of you who like some sleazy, grimy, gory goodness. But maybe outside of that, it might be a little bit too niche for some. So a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.